Thank you, Tim Forcey, for joining me today. Have got quite an amazing reputation as a founder of my energy efficient home, and I have been reading your book, and we're coming
Great.
up to the election this year in New Zealand, and I just thought it would be really nice to have a talk to someone from across the ditch, get some thoughts on home energy efficiency and what you've been learning in Australia that perhaps we could apply here. So, welcome.
Great.
Thanks for joining me. Originally in the energy gas sector, and then you've switched completely to being a home energy efficiency advisor and starting this amazing group, which is, I was looking this morning, 185,000 people are on that group now, which is amazing. Tell us about your journey and how you got started.
Sure. The Facebook group is My Efficient Electric Home (brackets MEEH). I trained as a chemical engineer and worked overseas in petrochemicals and then later in oil and gas. I migrated to Australia, so I've got an accent from the USA. I migrated to Australia a long time ago to work in the gas industry, but given my knowledge of the climate emergency and what we face there with the climate breakdown, in about 2010 I had to give up on the fossil fuel industry. After trying to make change from within, but eventually, just psychologically couldn't stay with the fossil fuels anymore in about 2010. And I was lucky to get a bit of a gig at University of Melbourne in 2015. We did a number of things. We looked at the methane emissions from unconventional gas extraction. We looked at the electricity grid, but we also did some home economics. And so we were about the first ones over here in Australia to work out that even in 2015, you could heat a home with a reverse cycle air conditioner for about a third the cost of burning gas. And this was amazing. So here was a huge cost of living benefit for people, even before we had a cost of living crisis, a third the cost. And more Australian homes were being fitted with reverse cycle air conditioners, but people would put them in for summer and never think about using them in the wintertime. So that's been the main message ever since. Here we are more than 10 years later. Heat with your air conditioner. It's by far the cheapest way to heat. It's a heat pump. It gets free heat from the environment outside. So use it. And yeah, as a result of that, I started a Facebook group, and later I started a business where I go into people's homes and help them out. And at one point, I was asked to write a book as well. So there's the book, My Efficient Electric Home Handbook, which I kind of wrote for Australia, but also maybe with New Zealand in mind as well. So hopefully people could find that sort of thing useful.
Yeah, I think it's totally applicable to New Zealand. The thing I really liked about your book is it's just so easy to read.
Mm. Yeah.
It's not high tech, confusing. It's got great cartoons in it as well, so there's a bit of a laugh
Yeah,
as
we put
well.
some cartoons in it from a noted cartoonist over here, and only one chart or graph. So if you don't like charts and graphs, you won't find many charts and graphs in there.
Yeah, it's a great read. I really recommend it to anyone interested in learning a bit more. So you mentioned that you're heading out to a house this afternoon. When you do your home energy advisor visits, what are the common things that you're looking for, and I guess the common things that you find when you're out on site?
Yeah, I hope this is a sort of a profession in New Zealand as well. But yeah, for 5 years with my own business, and before then even I was involved with some not-for-profits, and before that even we were doing the volunteer thing. I mean, we started the Bayside Climate Change Action Group in 2006. And it's like, great, we started an action group. What do we do now? Well, maybe we could help our neighbors to reduce their footprint, improve their homes. And so that's where I got a bit involved, helping people in their homes. But now I go in as a business, so people will ring me up and we'll go in there for 3 hours. And it's sort of like a tutorial. Together, we'll look at everything. You've got a ladder to crawl on the roof space to check out the insulation there. I've got a thermal imaging camera, which can be useful to talk about insulation in the walls. I've got a bucket to run shower heads. We look at the electricity bills. We look at the roof from Google Earth to see if it's suitable for solar. If they already have solar, is the thing still working and how's it producing? And there's just and then that's basically the 15 chapters in the book. There's like 15 or more different things to talk about, and in particular, home health. So a lot of homes over here can be too damp in the winter time, and I think that might be a New Zealand issue as well. So home health, making sure you're on top of moisture and opening the windows regularly to purge out carbon dioxide. So that becomes a part of it. But really, why people ring up over here for someone like me to help out is because they're uncomfortable. So the heck with the energy bills, the heck with wanting to be green and reducing your footprint. What really gets people motivated is because the weather turns from nice to cold over here, and then people are freezing in homes, which we refer to often as glorified tents. And so that's where you can go in and really start to help out in making things more comfortable, more healthy, and of course also reducing the energy bills and taking greater use of renewable energy.
So by the time you've finished your visit, you've kind of come up with a plan of action of what they can do to make the home more comfortable and along the way probably reduce their carbon footprint and their bills as well.
Yeah, it's sorting out priorities and people understanding the relative costs for all these things. And are there any government subsidies available for things? And so does it make it more affordable? Yeah, I might go into a home and they're thinking what they need to do is the double glazed windows. But often you find maybe that's the last thing to do. So draft proofing, fixing the roof space insulation. A child in the home has asthma, so let's stop using the gas cooking and get over
Yeah.
to an induction cooktop. Yeah, maybe there are some subsidies for solar or batteries, so take advantage of those and get some good window coverings. So that'll make the windows feel warmer. So I'm talking about blinds or curtains on the inside, make the windows feel warmer through the winter time, and it might turn out that the double glazed windows are way down the priority list. So that's the sort of thing you help people with, is just getting the priorities organized. And then the next thing is being able to offer to say, well, look, I'm independent, but here's three insulators I know that seem to do a good job, or here's three businesses that do solar panels. So, that would be your next step. Contact them and get quotes, and uh, and then I might stay in touch with people if they have any troubles making further progress. Then I help them through that as well. But quite often, if you pointed them in the direction of good businesses to work with, then they can make some good progress. And what we're finding over here in Melbourne in particular now, Melbourne used to have a lot of gas and it used to be cheap, but we basically depleted that after 60 years and it's no longer cheap. And air conditioners and heat pumps for hot water are better than they've ever been, and the solar and the batteries, so people can use those technologies. So what we find over here in Melbourne is some businesses have sprung up now with names like Get Off Gas or Goodbye Gas or All Electric Homes. And basically they're telling people, look, we can help you with this whole transition away from the gas over to the electric technologies. And also at the same time, they may get involved with the insulation and the draft proofing as well.
Yeah, we've in New Zealand we've got similar services, both some of them public through councils. So there are eco design advisors through some of the councils in New Zealand. So anyone based in New Zealand could look those up. There's also private providers similar to yourself, Tim, in New Zealand that can do the same services. Obviously, if you're in Melbourne, you'll be looking Tim up first. Um, do you think there's anything that's a pretty common myth among the homeowners that you're visiting? Is there anything that's stopping them from doing the obvious thing first?
Well, if you look at the whole population, I suppose there is a myth that we've largely gotten over in Melbourne and Victoria now, but the myth had been that gas was good or gas was cheap or gas was green or something like that. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was harder to say to people that really, no, no, you got options that are a lot better than gas. Or oh, I have to use a gas cooker because an electric induction can't do similar things. So those are some myths. And really those myths were supported by the gas industry because they could see they were in trouble. And we had any number of ads if we go back a few years about how gas is fantastic and it's the best thing for cooking, etc. But even the regulatory authorities over here that manage advertising, etc., got involved because yeah, they were saying things like gas is cheaper or whatever, and that was basically a lie. And so it takes a long time through a society to change it around. The other myth was the air conditioner. Oh, don't turn on the air conditioner, it'll cost a fortune. And some of that comes from summer. And in the days when, air conditioners used to be, less efficient and were more costly to run. It's up to you whether you use your air conditioner in summer, but I tell people definitely use it in winter because it's a third the cost of burning gas and maybe a quarter or a fifth the cost of using one of those electric heaters. So that's a myth that, we really sought to demonize the air conditioner over 20, 30, 40 years. And so turning that around a bit. I mean, some of my greenest clients are the ones that have put off ever getting an air conditioner. And suddenly when they realize, well, it's the cheapest way to heat and it's the greenest way to heat, then that was the first time they stuck their toe into getting an air conditioner into the home.
Interesting. We're kind of going through, I feel like we're going through similar things, but maybe a little bit behind you. Our gas fields are depleting much quicker than we expected. And so there's been a bit of a panic in the last year around gas. My gas bill, I've still got gas. So I am, I've worked in sustainability for 25 years, but have not done much on my own home. So this is my year. I was paying, I think, just over $1 for my gas daily charge alone before I even started. Now I'm paying $1.77 a day, just in the space of a few months. And I've just heard yesterday someone in based in Wellington saying they're paying $2.60 a day for their gas line charge. So yeah, gas in New Zealand used to be the cheapest hot water heating solution. Now it's by far and away the most expensive. And a lot of people in New Zealand are starting to hear about hot water heat pumps and make that transition. I feel like a lot of New Zealanders know about the heat pumps, we call them, and so there's been quite a good uptake and a lot of promotion around that. But the hot water heating, I think, is probably the next thing that we'll
Yeah,
become
that's
aware of.
the funny thing over here in mainland Australia, we call the heat pumps, reverse cycle air conditioners rather than heat pumps. And over here, a heat pump means the hot water heat pump. So yeah, the different terminologies. And nobody understands how a heat pump works. I mean, I'm a chemical engineer, and when I started to get into this, yeah, I had to sit down and say, oh, okay, well, this is like the big refrigeration system we might have used on a chemical plant, which I had experience with, but I had less experience with looking at the piece of home equipment and understand how it works. So, good luck to the average person trying to figure out, how do these things magically bring heat in from outside at very little cost. It seems too good to be true.
Yeah, that kind of I describe it as Merlin magic. I'm starting to understand the chemistry and the process that you go through now. I watched one of your other videos and you had a good analogy of your wife's about shoes and the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
pair of shoes in and the
Yeah, the shoe story is that with a reverse cycle air conditioner for heating, or even if you're using a heat pump for hot water, the thing might be basically 400% efficient because it's able to harvest free heat from outside. And so it's like going to the shoe store and you pay for one pair of shoes, but they give you four. That's pretty nice. You walk home with four pairs of shoes. Whereas your basic resistive electric heating for hot water or for heating a bedroom with an electric heater, that's 100% efficient. I mean, it sounds good, but it's not 400% efficient. So you put your money down for a pair of shoes. You only get the one pair of shoes. You don't get four pair of shoes. And with gas, it's even worse because a gas system might be 50% efficient. First thing you do what do you do when you buy gas? You don't look at it or marvel at it and examine it. No, no. The first thing you do when you buy gas is you set it on fire, and half of the energy goes up the exhaust pipe. So with gas, it's like you put your money down for a pair of shoes. They take the right shoe, they set it on fire, and you go home only with the left shoe. So
I can relate to the shoe story. I think it's a good one. Um, the fact that you get something for nothing is,
mm.
yeah, it's a good thing. Um, so you've really built a movement in Australia and people sharing their concerns and their issues and the responses to them is obviously helping people navigate that a lot. There's a growing kind of movement and there's a group that Rewiring Aotearoa have started in New Zealand. Have you got any advice for New Zealanders who are supporting each other to make a change to more energy efficient homes and more electrification in their homes?
Yeah, certainly the Facebook group My Efficient Electric Home, over here and then we got some Kiwis in there as well, 185,000 members and 1,000 new members every week. So, it is just, continues to be red hot. And most of them aren't robots. We do what we can to get rid of the robots. But social media can be one way that you can help each other And so these can be different sources of information. And as you were saying before, perhaps councils can be a good place for information. Certainly when my book was published a couple years ago, then I was contacted by over 100 different councils and libraries and community groups. And so, yeah, I was running all over the country, putting on presentations for all these community groups. So, yeah, look around, you'll probably find a community group that's getting into this electrification space or home improvement space.
Yeah, we have a series of electrify groups started up through Rewiring Aotearoa that are kind of building across the country. So they're having events, and then there's different programs run through some of the councils. Like in Auckland, we have the Eco Neighbourhoods group, which is kind of a street-based action group, and they do a whole series of things.
Yeah,
Um,
probably the biggest community group over here is called Electrify Boroondara. So that's just one particular council area of Melbourne, and they've just been amazing. But the big thing they do is every year they put on an expo, and so that's an opportunity to hear from speakers, but also they will get the businesses in, and so you can actually go see what a hot water heat pump looks like, or they might have it, they might be running an induction cooktop off of an electric car, so you can end cooking some sausages, so you can do that sort of thing. So those community events where you can actually get some businesses in, some suppliers. They might bring in models of double glazed windows or what have you. There might be people there talking about draft proofing or insulation. So that can be a good way for people to actually see what some of these things are about.
yeah, definitely. I think the Wellington series of events is on at the moment for anyone interested in looking that up. Tell me about what you've done in your own house. Obviously, you've been practicing what you preach over the years and doing the
Sure,
same
and
things in your own home.
yeah, and when I lived in America, we'd buy an old house and we'd fix up the insulation and the draft proofing, et cetera, et cetera. So similar thing here in Melbourne, bought an old weatherboard home in 1994, and initially we had to put on a couple bedrooms for the kids. And back in 1994, it's like, should we get double glazed windows? I mean, my family, my parents had triple glazed windows in America in the 1970s, and they needed it because it was like minus 30 degrees outside. So you didn't need that. But here in Melbourne in 1994, no, you don't need double glazed windows. And I don't even think we would have been able to find any back at that time. And I'm like, what about insulation in the walls? No, you don't need insulation in the walls. And I said, tell you what, let's just put some insulation in the walls. So at least we did that. But we put in the ducted gas heating in 1994 and got the gas hot water service, and we had an old banger in the wall air conditioner, which was hideously inefficient. But we used that because it was only a few days a year that we seemed to need that in Melbourne back then. But over time, yeah, we did various renovations with the home. We did finally bring in some double glazed windows. And then, the solar panels, our first solar panels went on in 2008 because there was a big government subsidy available then for just a small system, 1 kilowatt, 6 panels. So that went up. But we finally got around to fully electrifying the house, in 2015 when we'd worked out at Melbourne Uni. It was a third the cost to heat with the air conditioners. We went and bought our first two modern split system reverse cycle air conditioners and put those in. And we bought them in the summer. So the first thing we used them for was cooling. But of course, the idea was to use them for winter. And sure enough, it worked. And we were able to stop using the ducted gas heating. And then we got a hot water heat pump. And then we got the induction cooktop. And then we got some more solar panels. So with investments like that, I'm able to show a chart. And that's the only graph in the book where um, basically, you can end up saving like $3,000 a year in Australia anyway, because you're not using any gas anymore. You're not paying any fixed supply charge for the gas. And you have the solar panels that can help to reduce your electricity costs. And you can just keep going, and it can get even better with more investment. So, of course, you might consider a home battery. And so that could be something to store your electricity in the middle of the day. Or even here in Australia, they're talking about electricity plans you'll be able to have where there may be 3 free hours in the middle of the day for electricity because there is so much solar around the place. So that can be a time to be using a lot of electricity and charging your battery. And then, of course, just over the last year or so, we bought our first electric car. I've had friends who've had electric cars for 15 years, so we were a bit slow getting to that. But gee, they're just amazing. It is just such a wonderful experience. I don't even mind being stuck in Melbourne traffic anymore. I'm just happy to sit there because it's quiet and it doesn't smell and it doesn't vibrate and it's not hardly costing me anything to operate. So eventually you get to the electric car as well, and you can end up saving thousands more on petrol. So that's where we're at these days. But the bones of the house is still from a 1904 weatherboard. And I had a client just yesterday over in Geelong, and I'm like, why am I driving all the way to Geelong? And I remembered she told me she had this old weatherboard, and I'm like, yeah, I got to go all that way because that's a house I'm very familiar with, and I can tell them the stories and give them some vision as to what they'll be accomplishing over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
We've got a 1920s cottage,
Looks
and
beautiful. If
it's
that's you, if that's real life in the background.
oh well, yeah, this is the she shed out the back. The house, the other morning, this last week, my partner came into the kitchen and said it was 2 degrees. So we've got some work to do, Tim, here.
Yeah, yeah, we don't overheat and we dress appropriately, but we might have had the heater on, in the evening we're watching television. Um, it might have been at like 18 degrees or something. Yeah, I can come out. The biggest flaw of this home is we don't have underfloor insulation because we're fairly low to the ground. I should be digging under there to put in underfloor insulation. But yeah, we might come out and it's not 2 degrees in the kitchen. It's 15 or 14. So it's only lost 3 or 4 degrees overnight. And that's with the double glazed windows and insulation and draft proofing and good window coverings. So yeah, it might be 3 degrees outside, but it's only lost 3 or 4 degrees overnight with no heating on. So that's more, would it be a comfortable place to end up in. So then you don't mind coming out to the kitchen. It's a little bit chilly. We might put on an hoodie and wander around the kitchen for a little bit while we've turned the heater on again, and then heat it back up to 18 degrees. But that doesn't take very long. It doesn't use very much energy.
Yeah. That's a lot to be said for 14 degrees ahead of two, I think. Unlike you, we've still got single glazing, so you can really,
Yeah.
we've got the underfloor insulation and the ceiling insulation, but you
Oh,
can
good.
just see how much heat we're losing through that single glazing
Yeah,
with
and
big runs of windows.
you'll also see the moisture condensation, and this is where, we talk a lot about home health. So the healthiest range for relative humidity in the home is from a 40 to 60% relative humidity. And for $20, you can get a humidity monitor and you can monitor these things. But if you've got condensation on the windows, well, then obviously you've got, moisture that's a bit of a pain because it's sitting on those windows. If you can get a chamois rag and dry off the windows, get that moisture down the drain, that's cheap dehumidifying. But you might find that you actually you do need to run a dehumidifier to get moisture down into that range of less than 60% for the healthiest situation. If you've got allergies or asthma or chronic rhinitis or even other more severe things, yeah, you definitely want to avoid the mold situation where if you get up to 70% humidity, you're getting into the mold zone. So also managing home health and humidity is important. And your single glazed windows can really be a dead giveaway that you've got a lot of moisture in the home. Whereas with double glazed windows, you might not notice because you don't get any condensation on those if until it gets really cold outside.
Mm. I stepped out my front door earlier this week to see my neighbour in the front bedroom with one of those squeegee things taking the condensation off the window. So
That's
I
right.
think a lot of people are quite aware of the health impacts of what moisture in the home is doing. There's
Yeah,
been
and
some
it's
research released just recently in New Zealand showing that we're getting better with heating our living spaces, but our bedrooms are still really cold. And the other thing that's happening here is with our newer homes, they're more airtight, but they are finding quite a lot of moisture and mold in the roof cavity. So we're kind of solving some issues, but not others. So there's definitely some work to do in the construction industry in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, doing things like making sure the bathroom fans extract, not just into the roof space, but actually out of the building. That can be useful. Sure, we'd like people to do some draft proofing, But we recommend that people only do that after they've gotten the gas out of the house because you don't want to die of poisonous carbon monoxide from a gas heater. And also, you need to educate people about the moisture situation, and also that you should be opening up windows for a period every day to just purge carbon dioxide out of the house. Because after you've draft proofed, you may not be able to rely on some old leaky wall vent or chimney for your carbon dioxide to leave the house. So draft proofing's worth it. You go from a regime of uncontrolled air leakage to one of managed ventilation, but you do have to manage the ventilation.
Yeah, interesting. There's a lot to be said for buying a new home that's been really well designed. The the green housing ratings are a good way of doing that. Have do you come across many people are aware of we've got HomeStar in New Zealand as the rating for home performance. And I know NATHERS, the energy efficiency rating for offices, started off in Australia. Have you got an equivalent for houses there? You must have that we've based
Oh,
ours on
sure.
probably.
Yeah, for new builds for a long time we've had what they call the not the neighbors but the NATHERS, so National Home Energy Rating Scheme. And that was for new builds, and it started at 5 star and then it went to 6 star, and now we're up to 7 star, and each one of those stars is a huge reduction in the amount of energy that you're going to need to heat or cool a home. And now the regulatory requirement for Melbourne, for example, is the 7 star, and that means you're going to have, mostly double glazed windows. So you're not going to really be able to achieve the 7 star without the double glazed windows. The 6 star kind of meant that we started insulating under the floor, and getting to the 5 star meant we started insulating walls. So that's kind of been the progression. And we also have had in Canberra, our capital city, and in Victoria for a period of time, we had rating systems for existing homes. So in Canberra, there is a rating system for existing homes, so you can't buy and sell a home or rent it out without getting a rating on the home. And we had that for Victoria for a time as well. It was called the Residential Efficiency Scorecard. But now that's kind of being absorbed into this whole NatHERS thing again. So we will have a scheme for rating existing homes under that NatHERS umbrella again. So yeah, if you just want to catch up on what Australia is doing there, just Google NatHERS, NATHERS. I mean, we do have over here, for example, Sustainable House Day, organized by the not-for-profit organization Renew, who you may know in New Zealand as the publishers of Renew and Sanctuary magazine. So Sustainable House Day again can be an opportunity where people can go see a home that is not only been improved, but it's also been rated, and they're able to say, yeah, this thing's up at the 8 stars or 9 stars even, or even 10 stars is possible if you put in enough investments.
It's interesting how we're pretty good at rating fridges and
Mm.
washing machines. It would be nice to think that the biggest consumer of energy of all would be something that we could rate too. But I guess homes like mine are, if they got a 1 star, might be lucky at the moment.
Yeah, and it can be costly and complex to come up with a scheme that someone can go in and the way this NatHERS thing is meant to be operating, not that it's widespread in Australia yet, is you go in with your mobile phone, you can actually scan the room, and so it will take the dimensions and it'll know if it's north facing or east or west, and maybe it'll be able to with facial recognition, you could say, or AI, it's able to interpret that's a window and that's got a certain sort of window covering on it. Because you do need, you need you might need 500 pieces of information to go into some sort of to model a home to tell you what sort of a rating system it should get. There can be 500 or 1,000 pieces of information that need to go into a model to tell you about how a existing home should be rated.
But I guess you've talked about all the basics, haven't you? The insulation, the draft proofing, the double or triple glazing. So getting that building envelope right, and then making sure that the heating for space and water, we're using the heat pump technology, so we've got that really efficient. And then when we've got all those things sorted out, well, obviously from a health point of view, making sure we're using induction or electric cooking, so we're not putting all those toxic gases into our lungs and our homes, which I think is something that most people aren't aware of. We've kind of been sucked into the whole natural gas
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
argument when really it's, I don't know, I've seen some articles saying it's the equivalent of smoking inside, which, if you've got asthmatic children,
Yeah.
it's the last thing you would want to be doing.
Well,
So,
my
with those basics, and then later on, if you can afford your solar, there's really, the number of decisions that we need to make, and the great curtains is a good first step as a low cost thing. When I first moved in here, it was all secondhand curtaining, so you can do it.
Yeah, my grandmother used to cook over coal, so we could say she used to cook over natural coal. And then the gas came along, and that was seen to be cleaner, but now we can move on to the electric options. Um, we would spend over here in Melbourne in this, old weatherboard house, which isn't small. We'd only spend about $1.50 a day to heat the place during the coldest days in the Melbourne climate. Whereas I have clients who are spending 10, 15, 20, 25, $30 a day on gas heating. So that gives you an idea of what's possible as you improve the thermal envelope of the home and then you get onto heating with the air conditioners. You don't need to be spending $30 a day. You could be spending $1.50. And so that's the sort of thing that's possible. And in a lot of the cities in New Zealand, again, your climate's not going to be a lot different than Melbourne. It's not going to be minus 20 degrees in Wellington, I don't suppose. So, yeah, you shouldn't really have big heating bills, but you should be comfortable. So you should be able to sit in a home and be comfortable and only spending in the worst situation $1.50 a day to heat the place.
I think we get caught up sometimes about the cost of things when we forget about that monthly bill, and we also forget about the impact on our health as families in this home as well. Tim, I know you've got to hit the road to go and look at a house this afternoon.
Sure, yeah.
So, thank you so much for spending some time with me and sharing all your expertise. And I hope you've inspired some Kiwis to go out and find some local eco housing advisors like you that can help them on their journey in their homes as well. So,
Sure. Sometimes it's just actually seeing a home that's in good shape and saying, "Oh, wow, I didn't know this was possible. Look how comfortable this is in the middle of the winter, and you hardly have the heater on." So yeah, that's sort of personal experience. But here's the book again, My Efficient
yeah.
Electric Home Handbook. And if you want me to come over and do a speaking tour in New Zealand, just let me know.
We
Love
would
to.
love to have you. So Tim, your website's just Tim Forcey, TimForcey.com.au if anyone wants to find you that has a house over in Melbourne that or nearby that wants checked out, and your your Facebook group again for anyone interested in that is My Efficient Electric Home, or MEEH. And I saw something else you were saying. It's actually like a database, so you can search for information if you're interested in a specific topic like glazing or heat pumps. Just to see, you may not have exactly the same products in New Zealand, but there's quite a few of the brands that are similar. So it's great information for both the side of the ditch and yours.
Yeah, the Facebook search is not necessarily perfect, but yeah, it is a database, and so if you can search it and find stuff, yeah, you'll find a lot of stuff because the group's been running for 11 years and we get 50 posts a day. So, but I'd like to say there's hardly anything new comes up, but actually, yeah, there's always something new that comes up as well. But there's a lot of old stuff and people asking the same questions over and over and over again. But that's social media, so there you go.
Yeah, we're what's not new to you is sometimes new to us. Thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, let's plan to try and get you out to New Zealand sometime soon. We'd love to have you over for a visit.
Very good. Take care.
Thanks, Tim.